Now let's talk with Phyllis. Phyllis, thank you for that beautiful message and joining us today.
Thank you for letting me share it. It's, as I said, I carry that prayer on a little card in my pocket all day long every day, and I've carried it for years there. I haven't learned yet its message, but I think it's one that, it's one I need to learn, maybe by osmosis, out of my pocket.
You've given us several beautiful examples of Jesus' command to forgiveness, and I guess my first question would be, how do we embrace this more rather than struggle with it? I know it's a challenge to be forgiving, but the grace that comes out of that is really quite wonderful, isn't it?
It is, and you know, the examples one gives all involve something horrible, like the concentration camps, or like the cross, where there is such breaking of the human being over into that state of grace, which is true forgiveness. And I think most of us who are fortunate enough to live less dramatic lives don't probably ever get there, in which case we need to ask forgiveness. One of the interesting things about new theology that's coming out of Emergence Christianity, it spins here on the business of forgiveness. Emergence Christians talk about acts of inhumane kindness, by which they mean much of the charity and the deliberated, intellectualized attempt to go relieve suffering and all of that, saying that what it makes is acts of inhumane kindness, that the gifts we give must be given with love. And the only way you, if they are Christian gifts, and the only way that you can do that is to learn to forgive the other for his otherness or her otherness.
Phyllis,
and I love that.
You use the words, the breaking of the human being.
The breaking of the human being.
When you first appeared on 30 Good Minutes 5 years ago, the title of your message then was Serpent in the Desert.
My goodness, how can you remember that, Lydia?
You know, you're a memorable person. Serpent in the Desert on suffering, and of course today, forgiveness. I guess I have to ask you, how have you experienced both of them personally, and how has your own faith sustained you?
That's the second time in 24 hours I have been asked that question. I'm wondering if I should change my clothes or perfume or something. A young seminarian asked me yesterday that same question. And I'm 75 years old, so obviously nobody goes through 75, through 75 years without having hit some of that. But I actually discovered, to my surprise, I could name the 3 or 4 times one of our sons is dead. And that death certainly pivoted. That's certainly not unique to us, but as any parent, a female or whatever, will tell you who's lost a child, that redefines everything that's happened. The other was not suffering exactly, but a near-death experience. Back when I was 21, and people in nice people in 1950 and 55 did not have near-death experiences, or if they did, they didn't talk about them because they were, you know, really weird.
What, were you ill? What was that?
I was about to miscarry and was given a drug that we found out later had killed 6 women already. And after my experience, it got taken off the market very quickly. But I was lucky. It didn't, well, I did, technically speaking, die, but was resuscitated. But when that happens, it's impossible thereafter to fear death. You just absolutely cannot. The old joke, I don't mind dying, I don't want to be there when it happens, sort of appertains. I really don't. I don't want to be forever doing it. Right. But death is just not as frightening. And so that changed enormously things.
Because I was really trying to get at how you think suffering and forgiveness are connected. I mean, we all face, you know, we all carry around crosses.
Because I think that suffering really does, and I think age, it translates to suffering. I mean, I think just by living X number of years, you pick up X amount of suffering. It's impossible to live without suffering. And what it does, I think, either dramatically, if it's a moment of huge suffering, or if it's just the slow erosion of age, you lose your personness in a best kind of way. I think I don't think of me as me anymore so much as I think of me as a presentation of us in this particular persona or body. And that's a whole, and once you begin to feel that, to really feel that, there is, you and I are the same. And of course it's a trick to forgive yourself sometimes too, but then it's not an intellectual endeavor to forgive. It is a recognition that we all are together. And there is no pain for me that it's not pain for you, and conversely.
Phyllis, you're one of our gifted religion writers, and your latest book we have to spend some time talking
Yes.
about, called The Great Emergence.
Yes.
You mentioned Emergence Christianity. Tell us about the premise of this book. It's a wonderful examination of church history in some ways.
you.
So go ahead and tell us a little bit, our viewers.
Well,
more about this.
Emergence Christianity is of course the great emergence per se.
Okay.
is a total across the board sociological, intellectual, economic thing that's happening every 500 years. Western society goes through one of these tsunamis or whatever, paradigmatic shifts. I hate paradigmatic shifts. Nobody knows what they mean, but that
you know, say everything, it cleans out its attic every
that's right.
500 years.
A giant rummage sale. That's right, to quote Bishop Dyer. And that's what we're going through. And as the society goes through that, then of course religion, whichever religion holds hegemony, and Christianity obviously is, goes through the change with it, both informed and informing by, being informed by those shifts. So emergence Christianity is what's replacing Protestantism. And before anybody screams and hollers, let us say that 500 years ago the Great Reformation happened, and Protestantism came up and replaced and took pride of place, rather, over Roman Catholicism. Roman Catholicism didn't cease to exist. It just gave way to something new. 1,000 years ago, at the Great Schism, Greek Orthodoxy had to give way to Latin Christianity, and it didn't cease to exist. We just now had to, and if you go back 1,500 years, you know, then you find out that monastic Christianity took over apostolic Christianity. And 500 years before that, Christianity took over Judaism as having hegemony of place. But at no time in any of those has what was ceased to be. It's just given over pride of place. And every time it's happened, the faith, in our case Christianity, has increased dramatically, both demographically and geographically. It has been spread by this. So when we say we are post-literate, post-enlightenment, post-rational, all of these posts, and post-Christendom, and post-Protestant, and post-denominational, what we're recognizing, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist or more than one column of newspaper to realize that denominations are shrinking. You know, they are. But Christianity is growing.
Phyllis, you are a rare chronicler of the ever-evolving church, as theologian Karl Barth would say. But, you know, I've just got to tell you a chapter that stood out for me that you refer to as the marginalization of grandma. Now, we have, what, 30 seconds, but you are one,
you and I have a vested interest in saying that, in protesting that.
I love my grandmother. She was the most dear person in my life. So.
And that, of course, is a popular way of getting at the idea. But when we lost Grandma, when we moved away from the village, and there were 4 million of us in cities in 1900, now 84% of us live in cities, you know, when we moved away from her, Grandma was the great conservator, whether she meant to be or not. You know, she was the one who was watching. She was the one who was sure that the values were and
what you learned in Sunday school.
What you learned in Sunday school was Grandma, and we've lost her immediate contact now with her, and it's too bad.
Our viewers are going to have to buy this book and read about Grandma. It's a wonderful book.